Hello again, I'm Ana Cabrera in for Carol Costello. Thank you for joining me. Ben Carson at the center of more controversy this morning, this time because of some comments he made about gun control and the Holocaust. In his new book, A More Perfect Union, Carson writes this: through a combination of removing guns and disseminating propaganda, the Nazis were able to carry out their evil intentions with relatively little resistance. Well, yesterday, my colleague Wolf Blitzer sat down with Carson and he asked him to clarify what he meant. Listen.
But just clarify, if there had been no gun control laws in Europe at that time, would 6 million Jews have been slaughtered?
I think the likelihood of Hitler being able to accomplish his goals would have been greatly diminished if the people had been armed.
Because they had a powerful military machine, as you know, the Nazis.
I understand that.
They could have simply gone in, and they did go in and wipe out whole communities.
But realize there was a reason that they took the guns first.
Let's talk about this. Former Republican Congressman from Pennsylvania, Bob Walker, is joining me. Also with us, political science professor Jason Johnson. He teaches at Hiram College and is a contributor for SiriusXM POTUS channel. Thanks to both for being here. Congressman, let's get right to it. Carson and Trump. We've heard from both of them, the top two candidates on the GOP side right now. Their styles very different, but neither shy away from saying something that might turn a few heads. Their supporters seem to like that. What's your reaction to what Carson said about gun control and the Holocaust?
Well, I think that Ben Carson is a really high-quality man who has done a lot of miraculous things during his life. But I think he's now in a world where your adversaries and your allies dissect virtually everything you say. And it is a world which is quite different from that which he has practiced before. I think what we're seeing is that his statements are regarded as controversial, even though he doesn't particularly see them that way.
So Trump's also saying stuff these days that some consider controversial, but he tends to dig in his heels. And one thing that he's been questioned on over and over again is whether he will drop out of the race if he starts slipping in the polls. And today he said no. Listen to this.
I was with Chuck Todd, who was very good, and, I did meet the press, and he said, well, would you get out? And I made the statement that, well, if I could see I wasn't going to win, and if my numbers were really terrible, and if you wouldn't call and everybody's not calling, if I saw it wasn't going to happen, of course I would. The next day headlines, Trump considering maybe getting out of there. It was so ridiculous. Yeah. So you know what I say right now? I give more of a political answer. I'm never getting out.
I'm never getting out is what he says, Jason, but we have to say his numbers haven't been climbing, although he is on top of the polls. They've sort of plateaued. Why do you think that is?
Well, they've plateaued because other candidates are doing better. But we have to remember, Donald Trump is still in the lead. He's never not been in the lead. So there's no reason to think that he's going to lead. But Ana, I want to make sure that we make this clear. There's one thing about Donald Trump saying offensive things about veterans or saying something racist about Latinos. It's entirely something else for Ben Carson to essentially victim blame in the Holocaust. And suggest that people who were oppressed and abused by a regime didn't fight back hard enough. And I think those are real concerns for anybody. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or independent. It's a real concern when you have people running for president who make those kinds of statements.
Do you agree with that, Congressman?
Well, as I say, I think Ben Carson is attempting to make a point, but I have to say that any time that you raise the specter of Nazism, that it is going to turn on a lot of criticism for your position.
All right, let's talk about both these gentlemen, and I want to move forward and talk about policy. They've been making the media rounds, but when questions come up about specific policies, their answers have been kind of interesting. Trump tends to say, trust me, I'll be great. Carson last week, he sort of deflected a question about how he might handle the hurricane threat that was pending. And this week, he had a hard time answering some questions about the debt limit and whether he would raise the debt limit as president. So, Congressman, what's your assessment of these two GOP frontrunners' policy knowledge?
Well, that I think is a legitimate question because, look, you have to have an intuitive understanding of a lot of these major issues. You have to have seen the implications of not proceeding forward on something like the debt limit. You have to have lived with a lot of the turmoil that can be caused by bad policies. When you're kind of a novice into the whole area, it really does bring about a real problem when you try to simplify those things which are complex issues.
Jason, last word?
Let's make it clear. Being president is a tough job, and it's not a job for rookies. And they both sound like rookies, and we can't do that in this country.
Some would say President Obama was a rookie when he took the job as president. Unfortunately, we don't have time to discuss further, but I think people would agree with your point and others would disagree. Jason Johnson, Bob Walker, our thanks to both of you.
Thank you.